Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to Children's Church. I'm so glad to have you here with me. And it's the month of November, which means I'm getting older. But that also means that we're talking about promises all this month. Mostly the promises of God, sometimes the promises of other people, but we'll see. Anyway, we're jumping right in with the book of Judges. And we're jumping into the story of Gideon, and we're jumping in halfway through because I only have so much time to teach you guys in the morning, and I can't read 5 whole chapters. Anyway, we're jumping in. Judges chapter 7, verse 1. Let's go. Jeroboam, that is Gideon. Yes, that's his real name. Lots of people in the Bible have 2 names. Some of them are anglicized, some of them are not. We're going to go with Gideon because it's easier for you guys to say. And everyone who was with him got up early and camped beside the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them, below the hill of Moriah, in the valley. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many people for me to hand the Midianites over to you. Or else Israel might brag, I did it myself. Now announce in the presence of the people, whoever is fearful and trembling may turn back and leave Mount Gilead." So 22,000 people turned back, but 10,000 remained. That's like a whole football stadium, y'all. Then the Lord said to Gideon, "There are still too many people. Take them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. If I say to you, this one can go with you, he can go. But if I say about anyone, this one cannot go with you, he cannot go." So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, "Separate everyone who laps water with a tongue like a dog." God was in a salty mood, guys. "And those who lapped with their hands and mouths was 300 men. And the Lord said to Gideon, I will deliver to you with 300 men who lap and hand the Midians over to you. But everyone else is to go home." So Gideon sent all the Israelites to their tents, but kept the 300 who took the people's provisions and their trumpets to the camp of Midian, which was below him from the valley. All right, we're going to jump ahead to verse 15. We're skipping verses 9 to 14. When Gideon heard the account of the dream and its interpretation, he bowed in worship. He returned to Israel's camp and said, "Get up, for the Lord has handed the Midianite camp over to you." Then he divided the 300 men into 3 companies. That's 100 each. So everyone go. 1, 2, 3. They all had different jobs. And he gave each of the men a trumpet in one hand and an empty pitcher with a torch inside it in the other. He said, "Watch me and do the same. When I come to the outpost of the camp, do as I do. When I and everyone with me blow our trumpets, you are to blow your trumpets all around the camp. And then you will say, for Yahweh and for Gideon." That's a name for God. And Gideon is, of course, the narrator of our story. Gideon and the 100 men who were with him went to the outpost of the camp at the beginning of the middle of the watch. Say that 3 times fast. At the beginning of the middle of the watch. At the beginning of the middle of the watch. At the beginning of the middle of the watch. Sorry. At the beginning of the middle watch, after the sentries had been stationed, they blew their trumpets and broke their pitchers that were in their hands. The 3 companies blew their trumpets and shattered their pitchers. They held their torches in their left hands, their trumpets in their right hands, and shouted, "A sword for Yahweh and for Gideon!" Each Israelite took his position around the camp, and the entire Midianite army fled. They ran away. God. When Gideon's men blew on their 300 trumpets, the Lord set the swords of each man in the army against each other as they fled to Bethsitta, in the direction of Zerera, as far as the border of Abel Menaholah, near Tabbath. Then the men of Israel were called from Naphtali, Asher, and Manasseh, and they pursued the Midianites. My goodness, that was a lot of reading. So, Gideon, who had been afraid at first, he went to war, and he's like, "Okay, I got all these men, God." And God said, "Too many. You'll think you did this yourself. I promised you the victory. Get rid of half." "Okay, God, I've got 10,000 men." And God said, "Too many. You think you will have done it yourself. Get rid of all the ones who put their sword down and drink from the river like this." "God, we only have 300 left." And what did I tell you, Gideon? I promised you. I will give the Midianites into your hand. Now you're going to do this. This is the wildest battle plan I've ever heard, God. What did I promise you, Gideon? So Gideon bowed to the Lord, and he did as he said. And they didn't actually have to fight. Against 10,000 men, 300 men triumphed without raising their swords. They fled, and the Israelites chased them into the night. God delivered them into their hands without losing any people and without any bloodshed. When God makes a promise, it is absolute. Anything that God hasn't made a promise about can kind of go either way. But that which God has said is the truth. And he said, I have given the Midianite army into your hands. And Gideon said, okay. And that's exactly what God did. Without question and without any way of saying it was anything other than God. God gave his promise, and God followed through, because Gideon followed through. That's what I want you guys to remember this week. There's a lot of things I could say here about your torch being a light and shining it around people, and I left you guys a torch craft so you can do exactly that. Please don't hit your siblings with them. I'm begging you. But I want you to remember that God made a promise, and Gideon made a promise back, and they both followed through. Remember that for the week. Have a lovely week, and I'll see you guys next time.